Hello and good morning, everyone. Today we will discuss, two important topic in polity, which will help you and enrich you for Prelims 2024. Yesterday we have seen, many topics which are very important for Prelims 2024, and today I'll choose one topic and few questions. I will choose few topic and few questions which will help you right in Prelims 2024. Look at the topic which I'll choose, that is preamble and basic concepts. Now I will discuss few important lines and important concepts, right, which will help students in Prelims 2024. Question may appear from this topic, right? At least one question may come in 2024. Now, if you look at the preamble, right, you all know that preamble has been extracted from objective resolution. So, there was objective resolution, from which the preamble had been extracted. And if you look at preamble, it begins with we, the people of India, right. Now, it actually uses few words like sovereignty, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and shall constitute India at a justice, right. Here the word you can see that social, economic and political, right, liberty of thoughts, expression and belief, right. Then equality of status and dignity, right. Then you see the fraternity. Then another important which word are unity and integrity. And the date, which is the adoption date is November 26, 1949. Now, if you look at the preamble, which is a very important part of the Indian Constitution, now it declares India as a sovereign country. What do you mean by sovereignty, right? So, we will discuss few words: sovereignty, socialism, secularism, democratic republic in very brief, and then we will discuss the term like justice, liberty, right, equality, fraternity, unity and integrity briefly, and then we will check certain questions whether that questions is helpful, and even we are able to solve those questions, right. Let me talk about the term sovereignty. Sovereignty. Now, if you look at sovereignty is a modern concept. It is an integral part of any state, right. If you look at a state, any state has four basic elements. One is sovereignty, and another important part is territory, then population, and then government. These are the four components which are important part of state. Now, can you tell me who said this? Basically, this was actually agreed in one conference that is called Montevideo Conference. (1933). Now, in this conference, there was an international agreement that any state must have few basic elements. What is that a basic element? Sovereignty. It must have government. It should have mass population, and it should have defined territory. Now, defined territory, you are much aware, yeah, that is geographical. It must have defined geography. It must have its own population and it have its own government. What are the important part which a state poses, an independent state poses, that is sovereignty. Now, what is sovereignty? Now, if you look at before 1947, India had government, India had population, India had territory, but it was not sovereign. Sovereignty means, free from external control. Right? Free from external control. Now, before 1947, British power used to control India, but after 47, you can see India has become an independent and sovereign state. It had become free from any influence, right? So, sovereignty means supreme control, yes, free from external control. A state can use free will, right, in terms of decision making. If government makes any policy regarding domestic policy or in foreign policy, it must have independent thought. It is not influenced from the external force, right? So, that is sovereignty. Now, let me tell you, this sovereignty concept evolved in modern time, right? It is not, the concept was not available in medieval time, it was not available in ancient time. Basically, Treaty of Westphalia, (1648). Now, if you look at Treaty of Westphalia, 1648 was the major conference that laid certain principle. And what was that principle? The principle was that each state, whether bigger or small, are equal. It laid down few principles. What was the first principle? First principle was each state, either big or small, is equal, right? Still we follow that principle. Each state, like India or Maldives, you can see the conflict between Maldives and India, right? But Maldives is equal to India. Does not matter whether India is a geographically big country, economically big country, population wise it is a big country, but in international arena, in United Nations, right, Maldives has one vote, India has one vote in General Assembly, right? So, it laid down each state is equal. Still United Nations Charter follow this principle. Now, secondly, no state is allowed to intervene in others' internal matter. For example, India is not allowed to intervene in the Maldives' internal matter, right? And Maldives is not allowed to intervene in, right, the Sri Lanka's matter. So, each country is independent and free from the control of others, right? So, if you look at, that is a means of sovereignty. Each country, no country is allowed to intervene in others domestic matter. Now look at, India is not allowed, or US is not allowed to intervene in, Canada or North Korea. So sovereignty, if you look at, sovereignty means free from external control, and the state can use the free will when it decides domestic policy or foreign policy. It is free. That is meaning of sovereignty, right? And now let me move to another concept called socialism. Socialism. Now, how to define socialism? In briefly, right? The socialism can be defined, right, that the state should, control, the state should control economy, right, and redistribute goods and services. Right? Now, for example, if you look at India opted, India was a socialist country, right? And state had command on the economy till 1990. If you look at, the state had command on economy. The state used to regulate economy, right? At the same time, India allowed liberty, right? And our socialism is very much Fabian socialism. Fabian socialism. Now we will ask, what is Fabian socialism? Basically, Fabian socialism was very popular in UK, which believed that, there should be democracy, and through democracy we can bring socialism, right? Even if you look at Nehru opted mixed economy. Mixed economy, right? And basically state, there was a economy, there was 3 sectors called public sector. If you look at, there were many public sector, then there was a private sector, right? Many sector was allowed for the private, like banking system was private, insurance was private, coal was private, steel was private, right? And entire agriculture was private during Nehruvian time. And then there was a public-private partnership. Public-private. That was called joint venture. Right? Now, if you look at, the word was not there in the Indian Constitution. If you look at, it was 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, which actually inserted the word socialism in Indian Constitution, right? And if you look at, but it does not mean India had no vision of socialism. For instance, let me tell you, in 1955, the Congress party declared its aim of government to establish a socialist pattern of society. In 1955, Congress in its Avadi session, focused aim to establish socialist pattern of society. What do you mean by this? It means, there should be redistribution. If you look at land reform in the post-independent India, it was in action to establish a socialist society. If you look at industrial policy, 1956. Which actually had aim again to establish socialist pattern of society in India, right? Redistribution, equity was major concern of Indian state in the post-independent era. Even today, if you look at, we have moved to liberalization, privatization and globalization. Still, you can see there are several centrally sponsored programs and schemes by the government which helps poor, which helps the vulnerable and socially disadvantaged group like SC, women, children, right, differently abled people, LGBTQIA+, right. So, we have not moved from the idea of socialism. Socialism is very still significant for Indian society to address inequality, to address violence, right, to address the idea of justice or social injustice, right, discrimination. So, the socialism is a very much positive idea in Indian case. In Indian polity, socialism means the self-reliance, right, the self-reliance and helping poor even to the last. Even if you look at Prime Minister focusing on helping to the person who are even at the lowest last strata of the society, in the last row. That is the government's focus, right. So, if you look at that is a socialism. Now, come to the secularism, right. If you have noted all point, it will help you a lot, right. And I cannot pinpoint which point which point may help you, but yes, it will help you a lot. Now, come to word secularism. Yeah, I am talking about Indian polity in Indian context. I am not comparing with the world, right, because we have limited time. Now, look at secularism. Here, secularism means sarva dharma sambhava. Sarva dharma sambhava. What does it mean? Equal respect to all religion. Or religion, that in an Indian case, right. If you look at Indian state has no official religion. If you look at Indian state, it has no official religion. It has no official religion, right, and basically it provides common citizenship, provides common citizenship, right, which have scientific temper, which should possess scientific temper, right. For example, what is common citizenship? The common citizenship, India wants to provide, we have single citizenship. We don't follow dual citizenship, right. And for example, right to vote has been given to everyone without any discrimination, right. Any person who are adult right, or actually have right to vote, right. Then India follows principle of non-discrimination, principle of non-discrimination, right, principle of non-discrimination, that you know, article 15, right, article 15. Now if you look at Indian state, follow rule of law, rule of law, you know, article 14, right. Now if you look at Indian state provides right to freedom of religion, right to freedom of religion, that is article 25 to 28. Now these all are characteristics of a secular state. It is character of secular state. Now if you look at the Western state, which keeps separation from religion, right. If you look at Western secularism, right, Western state, there is a, if you look at Western secularism, right, there is a separation between state and religion. Separation between state and religion, right. So there is a wall of separation between, right, a wall of separation between state and religion. Now come to, if you Indian secularism, right, Indian state actually intervenes in religion, right, whenever it is necessary to remove discrimination. For example, look at article 17, it is an intervention in religion to remove untouchability. Look at Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Hindu Marriage Act basically prohibits polygamy. Look at Hindu Succession Act, it gives equal property rights to man and woman, right. Similarly, if you look at Triple Talaq Act, it criminalizes triple talaq and it gives freedom to women, right. It did little justice to woman who was victim of triple talaq, right. So basically Indian state intervenes, but it is not that Indian state intervenes all the time, not all the time. So what Indian state does? Indian state intervenes only when it is a requirement, right, to eliminate discrimination, right, to eradicate social injustice, right, to minimize inter-community domination or intra-community domination, right. So Indian state, Indian secularism, if you look at Indian state, intervenes in religion whenever requirement, whenever there is a requirement, right, in order to secure social justice. Right. For example, Hindu Marriage Act, Hindu Succession Act, Article 17 is a classical example, right. So Indian state does not keep a wall of separation between religion and state. It intervenes, right, and it maintains a principal distance. One scholar had argued it maintains a principal distance. What do you mean by it? Indian state intervenes, but only when it is required, right. So it is a flexible approach of Indian state to intervene in religion, not to intervene in religion. It intervenes only when there is a discrimination, there is a social injustice. So that is secularism. It will help you, right, this understanding. Now let me move to democratic. Democratic means the word has come from democracy. It has two words, demos and kratos, right? Demos and kratos. Demos means people, kratos means rule. So democracy literal means rule by people. Rule by people, right? And generally if you look at, there are two types of democracy. If you look at rule by people, there are direct, people direct rule themselves, like Panchayati Raj in India, like PRIs, like Athenian democracy. If you look at Athens, the ancient Athens, it was a direct democracy. Now secondly, you have indirect democracy, also called as representative democracy. Right, representative democracy. And modern world actually experiences representative democracy, modern world. Now look at, if you look at representative democracy, there are three types. One is called presidential system. Presidential form of government like US, like Latin American countries, right? Now you have parliamentary form of government. Like UK, India, right? Like Japan or Germany. And you have third is semi-presidential. The mixture of parliamentary and presidential form of government. Now let me tell you what are the basic principles on this parliamentary system of government is actually based on. Now if you look at here, the parliamentary system of government is based on the principle of collective responsibility. It is based on principle of collective responsibility. Right? What do you mean by principle of collective responsibility? The principle of collective responsibility refers to that the executive means the government shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha who are further responsible to the people of India, right? So executive is responsible to the lower house. So it is an accountable government. It is a responsible government, right? Now in presidential form of democracy, there is separation of power. Separation of power. Now in India also follow separation of power between judiciary and executive, right? But we follow the principle of collective responsibility. I hope it is clear, right? Now let me talk the republic. Republic is a very easy term. Republic means any country which is headed by elected leader. Like India have elected head of the state. like America has elected head of the state. So, it is a republic, America is a republic, India is a republic, right. So, you can see the republic. Now, can we move to the another word, right? Look at word justice, right? Especially, justice. What is justice? In very short term, it is a right conduct. It is a right conduct, right? A very much ethical conduct, that is a just conduct. A very much, moral and ethical conduct, right. If you look at justice is a basic structure for any society. Justice is a basic structure for any institution, any society, right. Now, if you look at here in India, in Preamble, we talked about social justice, right. When we use social justice, then we addresses injustice that is all around in the society, like caste discrimination, like gender inequality, gender discrimination, like caste violence. These all are injustice. So, social justice refers to address all forms of discrimination, violence, exploitation, right, and establish equity, establish harmony, establish dignity in society, right. That is social justice, right. Allow individual to participate, respect human rights, right, recognize individual, distribute goods and services, that is social justice basically. So, social justice addresses problem of social maladies, social discrimination, social malpractices, like gender inequality, caste discrimination, right. And basically social justice also seeks to empower socially disadvantaged group, socially disadvantaged groups. Now, who are the socially disadvantaged groups here? Now, you can call socially disadvantaged group to those people who are at risk of violence. For example, women. If you look at women, if you look at SC, if you look at persons with disabilities, if you look at LGBTQIA plus, now these groups, children, look at children, look at old age, they all are actually called socially disadvantaged group. So, social justice is a state policy basically, right, to address these problems. Now, what is economic justice, right? So this is social justice. What is economic justice? Right? Provides favorable opportunities, right? Economic justice implies favorable inclusion, favorable inclusion in economic activity, right? Like for example, reservation in jobs, right? Like for example, giving quotas in scholarship, right? Land patta. These all are economic justice. What is political justice? Political justice, again providing opportunity to get represented, providing opportunities to get represented, right? To vote freely, that is justice. Now, I think we should move to the question section and we see question, and then tomorrow I'll focus more on this topic. Let's see few questions. Here, if you look at the first question, in the Indian larger polity, the word democratic means. Now look at democratic means. Here, the popular sovereignty. What do you mean by popular sovereignty? Popular sovereignty means, the source of power and authority is people. Source of authority and power is vested in the people. What do you mean? In India, we follow this, we call we the people of India. We the people. Now, if you look at parliament, represents this phrase, we the people, because we elect our representatives and representatives rules us through our will. So basically, popular sovereignty, yes, popular sovereignty. Rule by the people, yes, rule by the people. Concentration of power, no. Concentration of power does not mean democracy. Democracy means decentralization of power. यहीं पर अगर decentralization of power होता तो वो correct होता. So that's why it is wrong. Here A 1 and 2 is the correct answer, right? So I hope this will help you a lot, right? Now look at the question of next question. Now, which of the following objectives is not embodied in the preamble to the Constitution of India? Look at, we are talking about different kinds of liberty, right? Liberty of thought is there, yeah. Economic liberty, liberty of expression, yeah. Liberty of belief, yes. Economic liberty is not actually mentioned anywhere in the country Constitution. India tries to minimize economic inequality, but it never talks about economic equality. Even in DPSP, if you look at the directive principle of state policy, which talks that India try to minimize economic equality, it prevents concentration of property, right? Concentration of wealth, right? So actually India does not talk about economic liberty, right? So answer would be B. In Indian polity, if you look at preamble, economic liberty is not mentioned. Now look at the another question. India is a secular state, which means the state does not have official religion. India is a secular state, which means the state does not have official religion, correct? I think secular state should not have its official religion. Cannot intervene in the religious matter? No, it can. it can intervene in the religious matter, and Indian state have intervened, like abolition of untouchability or abolition of polygamy, right, triple talaq, fine. So Indian state have intervened, Indian state has intervened in religious practices. Now, can intervene in to reduce discrimination? Yeah, this is correct. So 1 and 2, 3. See, Indian state can intervene to reduce discrimination, right? Now move to the next question. Which one of the following is not a characteristic of secular state? Look at. You have 4 options, and which it talks about it is not a characteristic of secular state, right, in India. Now, uniform civil code, it may have secular equality before law, it is freedom of conscience, it is complete separation of religion. No, we do not follow the complete separation of religion formula. You know, a wall of separation between state and religion is followed in Western secularism. This is basically Western secularism. This is Western secularism, not Indian secularism. Indian state maintains a principal distance with religion, and it had intervened in religion. Indian state has intervened in religion in order to reduce discrimination, right? Now, let me move to the next question. Which one of the following is a suitable features of the Indian concept of secularism? Look at the question. The presence of a state in religious matter, absence of religion in a state institution. A little analytical question this is. The presence of a state in religious institutions and of religion in state institutions. Total non-interference of state and religion? No. This is not be, none of the above. We will discuss this. First discuss presence of state in religious institution. Presence of state in religious institution. What do you mean by it? You know that, like Article 17, it is present in everywhere, even it is applicable to temple, right? So you can say that even temple cannot practice untouchability. So there is a, you know, Article 17 is applicable, right? Now look at of religion in a state institution. Have you seen any state institution which is actually using religious symbol? Bande Mataram, or Senegal, the parliamentary, Senegal has been put in the Indian Parliament. You can see here, there is a presence of religion in a state institution. For example, the emblem had been taken from Buddhism, right? The Ashoka's Stambha, right? So this would be the correct answer, B. Right? So we have seen presence of state in religious institution, and there is a religion in a state institution, right? So both are correct, but both are limited. Now let me talk about the next question. Parliamentary form of government is known as Westminister Model of government, cabinet form of government, prime ministerial form of government. Look at the parliamentary form of government. If you look at parliamentary form of government, is very popular in UK, India, Germany, right? Very popular. Now, in this form of government, cabinet is very powerful, and it is so powerful that it is called as a cabinet form of government. In parliamentary system of government, if you look at, cabinet is very powerful. Cabinet is very powerful, right? And that's why it is also called cabinet form of government. Here, cabinet it is headed by PM, and in parliamentary system of government, Prime Minister is a real power. Prime Minister exercise real power. He defines domestic policy as well as the foreign policy. So, this is also called Prime Ministerial form of government. Now, if you look at the word Westminister, if you see UK parliamentary system of government is called Westministerial form of government, right? So, it is also Westministerial form of government, cabinet form of government, all three are correct. You can find all three options are correct. Let me talk about the next question, right? There is a parliamentary system of government in India because the Lok Sabha is elected directly by the people. A statement is correct, but it is not a region. This is not, the principle of parliamentary system of government as we discussed little ago. Now, parliament can amend the constitution, and that is a statement is correct, but it is not a true region, right? Now, the Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. This statement is also true, but it is not a region. Look at Council of Ministers is responsible to the Lok Sabha. Yes, look at Council of Ministers. It is also called executive. It is also called government. Right? Now, if you look at this Council of Ministers, executive, government is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, the lower house. The lower house. It does not mean the government is not responsible to the Rajya Sabha. For example, if question is raised by the Rajya Sabha, right, regarding any urgent issues related to any ministry, that ministry has to go to the Rajya Sabha and answer them. Right. So, general formula is of course to the Lok Sabha, but in generally parliament. Right. So, here you can see that D would be the correct answer. The Council of Ministers or the executive, the government is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, and further, the Lok Sabha is responsible to the people of India who elect them. People of India elect the people of, members of the Lok Sabha, right? Okay? And this is elected executive, Let me give you one more, point here. This is elected executive. Here, elected executive is responsible to the elected legislature. See the word change. I have changed the word. The elected executive is collectively responsible to the elected legislature, right? And let me tell you, the permanent executive. What is permanent executive? IAS, IPS. These are the permanent executive. Now, this permanent executive is responsible to the elected. So, look at the chain of responsibility. The permanent executive is responsible to the elected executive, which is further responsible to the Lok Sabha, which is further responsible to the people of India. And here we can say that people of India have control over the government. The people of India have control over the government, right? To democracy. Fine. Let me move to the next question. Now look at the question number 8, and this is a very, out of the following statements, choose the one that brings out the principle underlying the cabinet form of government. Now I told you that cabinet form of government means parliamentary form of government. Right? Parliamentary form of government, you must remember. Now you read. An arrangement for minimizing the criticism against the government whose responsibility are complex and hard to carry out. Now, a mechanism for speeding up the activities of the government whose responsibility increased day by day. No, a mechanism of parliamentary democracy for ensuring collective responsibility of the government to the people. Look at here, government is responsible to the Lok Sabha and to the people. So government is responsible to the people. Now this C would be the answer. C would be the correct answer of this question. So you must keep in mind few basic principles, right? Few basic words through which you can click the question, right? You can crack question and can find suitable answer. Let's move to the next question. The main advantages of the parliamentary form of government is that, now you read, the main advantages of the parliamentary form of government is that the executive and legislature work independently, it provides continuity of policy and is more efficient, the executive remains responsible to the legislature. Look at, the executive remains responsible to the legislature. So C would be the correct answer. So here you can see that this question had been asked several times again and again, right? So you must remember the principle of parliamentary form of government, that is collective responsibility. Now look at the next question. A parliamentary system of government is one in which all political parties in the parliament are represented in the government. No. The government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by it. No. The government is elected by the people and removed by them. Wait. Here you can see that the government is responsible to the parliament. Here government, here parliament. Here you have Lok Sabha, you have Rajya Sabha. Now you can see, right? This can be the correct answer, right? Because here the government is responsible to the parliament. I told you that its general formula is that executive is responsible to the Lok Sabha, but it does not mean the minister should not respond to the question raised by the Rajya Sabha. So generally government is responsible to the parliament in general, right? And of course parliament represents people. So parliament, indirectly the government is responsible to the people of India, right? Now look at the question that you can solve it very easily, and these all are basically PYQ, previous year questions that you can solve, right? Now let me move to one or two question. Now, yeah. So with this I will stop, or let me take two more questions. A constitutional government by definition can be best defined by which of the following? Look at what do you mean by constitutional government? Constitutional government. Now, if you look at constitutional government is always a limited government, right? Very much limited government. Why limited government? Because constitution limits power of the executive, power of the legislature, power of the judiciary, right? It also limits the power of the individual. It also limits power of any group, right? So, if you look at constitutional government, it has limited government. And let me tell you, this is a belief of constitutionalism. What is constitutionalism? Constitutionalism is a belief that a written document which includes a set of rules and regulation should be basis of the government, like constitution. So, constitution should be the basis of the government. Constitution limits the power of the government. Government should not be arbitrarily. Government should not be, fanciful. Government should not exercise power without restrictions, and therefore constitution would be the better, right? A written document would be better, which can define power of the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. It also defines power and functions, organization and structure of different public institutions, right? And if you look at, this is constitutionalism, right? So, major idea of constitutionalism means, right, that the government should have limited authority. Government should have limited authority. It should not have excess authority, right? Government should not be arbitrarily. Government should not be, beyond caution. No, right? And in constitutionalism, if you look at, constitution is understood as a supreme. Constitution as a supreme authority, right? A supreme authority. However, constitution can be changed, but once it is changed, when laws are framed, now everyone, each person, each institution shall subordinate themselves under the authority of the constitution, right? So, constitution is supreme, right? It is a supreme authority. And even if you look at legislature, executive and judiciary shall function under the ambit of the constitution. Constitution will define power of each branch of the government. So, if you look at, constitution is also called power map. Sometimes constitution is called power map. What do you mean by power map? It gives power, it limits power. ये पावर देता भी है और पावर को लिमिट भी करता है. Power, it gives power, it limits power, right? That is called constitutionalism, right? Now, look at the next question. In the larger polity, the word equality does not mean. What do you mean by equality in the Indian constitution? आपको पता है right to equality, and we have right to equality under Article 14 to 18. Now, अब क्वेश्चन बनाइए, इतना दिमाग में रहना है, and then you need to frame the question. You have to solve the question. Now, look at, in the larger polity, the word equality, absence of privileges, it is equality. Yes, it is a equality. Equality of status and of opportunity. Yes, it is a equality. Universal adult franchise. Yes, It is equality. What about economic equality? Economic equality does not mentioned in Indian Constitution, right? Indian Constitution does not guarantee economic equality, right? So, these are the few questions which we solved based on preambles. Now, I will see you tomorrow with more important topics with certain conceptual framework, and then certain few questions which can be fruitful to solve, and you can use that concept in your examination. Thank you. See you.